You're watching Byline Wilmington on CBS 10 WILM. Here's your host, Don Ansell.
And welcome back. Our guest this morning is Frederick Rick Willits III. Folks around here know him as Rick, and he is the CEO of Cooperative Bank, third generation to lead that regional banking giant. Bad mortgage paper, Rick. Did Cooperative have a lot?
We did not. They call that subprime mortgages or Alt-A mortgages and whatever, and we did not have those kind of mortgages on our books.
Do you think that the banking industry, we were in some very lucrative times, the industry was romanced by lucrative times into losing sight of sound banking principles?
I think in some cases that was the case. Also competition. The guy down the street's doing it. If I don't do it, I don't get the loans. But the thing I do want to emphasize there is the word bank is used interchangeably in a lot of different scenarios. You have investment banks, you have Wall Street banks, you have mortgage banks. Commercial banks did not make the kind of mortgages that have gotten us in the trouble we're in today. It was largely made by mortgage brokers who were driven solely by making a fee on the sale of the loan, and somebody on the other end was dumb enough to buy that loan.
Well, what's happening with mortgage rates now? You do mortgages.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
Mortgage rates are back down to almost historic lows. 30-year fixed rates are now below 5%. So I think one thing that this will help, a lot of people who are in these mortgages that they couldn't afford now perhaps can refinance and get that lower rate and be able to afford them. So I would urge anyone who's in a mortgage that's above 5% or that has an adjustment coming up in the near future to contact a mortgage lender and see if you can qualify to get one of these lower loans. Now, I think the key there is qualify, because there have been a lot of people that got loans that they didn't have to state, they didn't have to verify income.
No doc loans.
No documentation. No credit reports. And we're doing weird stuff now, like actually requiring documentation, which we always did.
You always did. But generally, how tight are the requirements to get a home mortgage as compared to a few years ago? A lot different?
I think they're tighter than the no doc, but typical,
there are no more no docs.
Not that I'm aware of.
Right.
But I think people that have got a job and decent credit can typically afford a mortgage.
What about home equity loans? Are they still popular?
They're not as popular as they used to be, because the second part of that word is no longer there. That's the equity portion. Because of deteriorating values, a lot of people don't have the kind of equity left in their homes that they once did. But they're still a viable option.
Along with all of this, we're seeing shrinking competition in the banking industry in choices that consumers have. What are your thoughts on that?
I think we're going to continue to see that. The shore-up money has basically gone to shore up the large and regional banks. Very little of it has gotten to the community bank level. I think you're going to see community banks joining forces with other community banks to strengthen themselves. And in many cases, community banks are going to end up disappearing into the large banks.
You've bought banking concerns in the past. Cooperative has taken over other banks. Have you ever been enticed to sell?
Well, somebody asked me if I would ever sell the bank, and we converted to a public company in 1991. And at that point, I worked for the stockholders. And so if the right offer came along and it looked like it was in the best interest of the stockholders, I would certainly have to consider that. Our board would.
Have you been approached?
I've had lunch bought for me a number of times over the years, but I don't think I want to comment further on that.
We've been hearing as consumers that we have been gluttons for credit and carrying too much debt. How much responsibility does the banking industry have in all of that? I mean, I used to get about 3 or 4 offers a week for easy credit in one form or another.
When my children were growing up, they got all sorts of offers for pre-approved $1,000, $2,500 credit cards, and they were getting a $5 a week allowance. I'm not real sure how they were going to qualify for that. So yeah, I do fault companies that were out soliciting people for credit that they really didn't have any business taking out.
What about the high interest rates that credit lenders are allowed to charge? Some are 24.99 APR, annual percentage rate, almost 25%. When I was growing up, that was called usurious, and it was illegal.
Apparently it is legal in states now, and the problem there is that I know South Dakota, for example, is a big credit card issuing state now. A number of banks have their credit card centers there because they have very favorable usury laws. Well, if you're headquartered in South Dakota, you can issue credit cards worldwide, and you're governed by South Dakota law. So there have been ways to get around that. One thing I would urge consumers is look at the APR you're paying on your credit card. And if you're paying above the mid-teens, contact your credit card company. In some cases, they'll lower the rate, but they're not going to do it voluntarily.
Right. Should the government, and I'm not talking state government, I mean, should our U.S. House and Senate lower the rate of interest that is allowed under the law so that it's not usurious?
I think that tends to stifle the free flow of credit. And we've had usury laws in the past, and when the market rates get above those rates, credit basically just shuts down. So I'm not sure that would be a wise solution.
Of course, we had that situation when the credit, the limits were high. The credit market shut down.
It did, but shut down for different reasons. And that's the situation we're in today. The credit markets are shut down. We can certainly discuss that as we move forward.
Actually, when we come back, we're going to talk about too big to fail. A lot of institutions we're hearing now need government help because they're too big to fail. We're going to talk about it with our guest, Rick Willits, CEO of Cooperative Bank. When we come back, stay with us.